Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Deep Three. This is like a Taylor Funk corner three-point shot. He's going to knock it down. We can't wait to get him back on Hawk Hill in uniform playing. He did an amazing job on his body, his fitness level, his strength level during the time he sat out with the injury and his redshirt season. We couldn't be more proud of his effort. He really was an inspiration to our staff and our players. Now on to our first question. It comes via Facebook from a gentleman named Frank. Frank, first off, thank you very much for your compliments that preceded your question. Deeply felt. Thank you very much. The question says, can we get the mascot a better costume and sign premier players who want to come here from around the country and around the world? Frank, I think if we need to get the Hawk a better costume, that is above me. I encourage you to reach out and ask some other people if we can do it. I'll tell you, I hear you, though. There are times I would watch the mascots costume on the floor because they would often get changed where the coaches would get changed or he would. And he'd be out on the floor doing some other things prior to putting the costume on. And I'd look down and I'd see the costume, feathers are falling off. It looks a little beat up. You can see a couple scars there, if you will. And then there was one day I was sitting down there by myself and I thought about the costume. I'm like, isn't this just like life and just like the journey of a team, right? It's like you get a little weathered. You might have a couple things fall off you, maybe a couple nicks and bruises, maybe a couple scars, but you get on up, you put it on, you start flapping your wings, and you take off and fly. And that is the Hawk will never die. So if we get another costume, great, but the one that we have right now just keeps showing us that spirit that we have, that toughness and that edge that is Hawk Hill, Philadelphia. The second part of your question about recruiting players nationally and globally is something that we discuss often as a staff. I mean, if you just look at where the university attracts its students from, we have to start in those geographical areas. Those areas are aligned mostly with I-95, which happens to have some great high school basketball markets from New York to North Jersey to obviously Philadelphia, Delaware, Baltimore, DC, Northern Virginia. We want to stay in there as a primary looking area to target the best players that we can get that fit our program and the university. The national thing, though, is not to be looked past, like, oh, we can only be regional. I do not feel that way. Our staff does not feel that way. We have to use relationships that we have. We have to use our style of play to find a way to attract players that maybe see this as a perfect fit. We also have to commit as a university and an athletic department to the things that it takes to do that and to attract those people, because it's a competitive world out there and you don't want to waste time being in like other parts of the country. And Jill and Dr. Reed, we all talk about this because it raises the profile of the university too. It's not just men's basketball, it's how does men's basketball help St. Joseph's University. So we're all in on that, but it's a strategy that has to continue to be talked through. Internationally, from the day of my first press conference, I talked about it. I believe in it. I believe in the European style of play. But mostly, I believe in the welcoming spirit of our university and the way that we can attract and take international students in, wrap our arms around them, and show them a family. It helps that we're in a major media market like Philadelphia. It helps that we have an international airport. My NBA experience and the contacts that I've met help. So we're going to continue to do these things. And we have had some great players that have played in Europe after their careers on Hawk Hill that have done quite well. So that is also a benefit for us. We're just going to have to get to the plate a few times, maybe strike out a few. We're not going to have a whole roster built on those types of guys, but we're going to try to get as many as we can that fit what we're looking to do. We're excited to start this off with Anton Jansen. We think he's going to be a great one for us in his way over his time as he continues to develop. Frank, that is a great question. Thank you for kicking off the Deep Three with the opening shot today. Next question comes from John via Instagram. John asks a really interesting question. How is it adjusting from coaching pros to student athletes? Great question, John. John, I've coached at every level. I've mostly every level of basketball. When you think about high school, Division III, Division II, multiple levels of Division I, and my experience in the NBA. And coaching is about teaching and connecting, in my view. And different levels and different times of the seasons, depending on your talent and the experience and the maturity of your team, need you to adjust that. But ultimately, it just comes down to teaching and connecting. when I was in the NBA, I like to tell people I died to self very quickly. One of my first experience was I was pretending I was on the foul line. A lot of times in the NBA, the coaches have to jump in on practice to just like mimic the other team. So we were at PCOM. This is where our practice facility was with the Sixers at that time. And we were working on free throw offense. Like, what would we do if we missed a shot on purpose to then go tip it in? So I stepped into the line to box out Evan Turner, and I stepped to the college line, and ET put his hand on my shoulder and says, BL, you're in the NBA now. You got to back up a few inches. So I'll never forget that. And I remember thinking, like, this is about dying to self. You know, these guys are, yes, they're rich and people want to talk about them being millionaires, but more, they're geniuses. They're really good players who have experienced so much. They didn't need to be yelled at. They didn't need to be cursed at. They didn't need to be demeaned. And it taught me that my ultimate job as a coach is to be a teacher. So I had to adjust quickly to, like, how do I show them respect, which is a word of our program, and teach them. And you have to teach in the NBA. Like, there's so many things that are moving and evolving over the course of an 82 game season that it looks the same maybe to the casual fan, but there are so many adjustments that a team is making within a 2 to 4 game pocket. It's incredible how much you have to teach. And so when I came back to this space in college, I vowed to myself that I want to do this differently. I want to teach our players. I want to respect our players. Now, I'm grateful and blessed to have an amazing coaching staff on the bench with me in Thomas Boyle and John Griffin and Justin Scott and Brendan Strong. They've reminded me a few times, hey, bud, you're back in college. You need to step on these guys a little bit more if they're not doing it. So I'm going to find a balance, right? I want to be patient. You can't be under control and teaching well if you're impatient. Some things take time. And I think if I can show our players that respect, that will be good. The other part is I understand how much passion can drive a team. I'm a pretty passionate guy. I've had college experience. I've been in college game longer than I've been in the NBA game. So I don't know that it's so much an adjustment in terms of like this seismic change. I think there were some things that I had done in college that when I got to the NBA, I had to let go of. Truth be told, there are some things that when I was in college that I got to the NBA that I held on to, and I think it made for better relationships because that's just who I am and that's how I did it, and I know those things were successful. Now as I come into the college space from the NBA, I take with me, keep teaching your team, keep coaching your team. Take losing and make it better by changing the trajectory through a few things, not by demeaning them and criticizing them all the time. Take winning and stretch them to be even better than they think they can be. Keep adjusting as you need to adjust. So if I can combine both worlds, I hope I can be a great version of a coach here. St. Joe's has had so many great coaches, but that really is how I look at it. Not so much as an adjustment as how do I take the best of both worlds and combine them and be the very best I can for our team and for our fans. Great question. Thanks. This final question comes via Twitter from Pan, who asks a really cool question as it pertains to Philadelphia basketball. It's, what does the Big Five need to do collectively to become relevant again in the Philly sports scene? And what do the schools not named Villanova need to do to keep more Philly talent home for college? Let's go to the second part of that question first. Number one, we have to stay focused on just ourselves. We have to just be the best we can be. And there are 5 other Division I schools in our city, and it can be dizzying running around trying to look at what everyone is doing. And I get it from a competitive standpoint. We want to beat the brains out of everybody we play. I'm sure our fans want to be able to beat the brains out of their best friends who go to the other colleges, and I get that whole part of it. But when it comes to just making a strategic vision, having a strategic plan, and then trying to follow that through, the focus needs to be on us being our best versions of ourselves. And we believe that has to have Philadelphia homegrown talent on the team. We've got some guys on our team right now that are from that area. We're attracting transfers that have left the area and want to come back and play in Hawk Hill and be a part of the Philadelphia sports scene. There are a lot of high school kids in the class of 21 and 22 and 23 that we've locked in on because we believe these are the best players. It's not just because they're in Philadelphia. We think they're great no matter where they are. But we also realize, like, Hawk Hill, Philadelphia, to me, represents the entire city of Philadelphia. There's such an edge here that is true to the blue collar work ethic that has made this city what it is. So we want those players. I want them diving on the floor for loose balls. I want them taking the ball hard to the rack. I want that passion when there's an and one. I want that passion standing in the center of the circle when we're playing the Hawk Will Never Die after the game. We want all of that. That matters to us. So when guys like Marvin O'Connor and Tashid Carr come back and they're banging the drum, and Pat Carroll and they're banging the drum, it's like so cool to see that this is home for them. So we're going to keep doing that. The first part of the question, what does the Big Five need to do to be relevant? I mean, I don't know that it's irrelevant. I often look at, the city of Philadelphia's Division I college basketball scene as being like the fifth professional sport, right? It's like there's a huge following of college basketball in Philadelphia, and it isn't like that everywhere else. Now, for a lot of people that have seen just an incredible length of time in terms of like how it relates to the Big Five, it's definitely changed. It's not the same in terms of where the games are played. And recently, there's been one program that's just dominated it. I mean, truth be told, we just have to admit that. And that's okay. That's fine. It raises all boats. It makes us all feel like, all right, what do we need to do to be better? I look at the Big Five as the second league that we play in. We play in the Atlantic 10. That is our conference. But the Big Five is a league, and we want to win that league every year. So if there's a team that's out there that's doing it, like, we have to get better, not because they are better than us, but because we want to drive ourselves to be good enough to win it. That's where the focus has to be. So how do we make it more relevant? We just get more competitive across the board. St. Joe's, Temple, LaSalle, University of Pennsylvania, Villanova, we all be as good as we can possibly be, and it raises the sports scene here in Philadelphia. But college basketball and the Big Five, I got to tell you, if you step out of the city of Philadelphia and you talk to other people, they think it's a big deal. They think it's a really big deal. We think it's a big deal, all right, at St. Joe's. We know that. But it is still relevant. I think the more competitive we get, I think the better our teams can be on a national scale, that all bring the attention back to this amazing city and this amazing institution that is Big Five basketball, the better it will be, and maybe it will feel more relevant. Thank you for these three great questions. They were all very deep. They required a lot of thought, and I did a lot of takes. So I hope everyone's staying safe, staying healthy, staying well. I look forward to doing another edition on Friday. Take care, everybody.